Holy shit, Kino's journey's dead.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's weird. This week is weird.
I was debating long and hard because that was the thing. It was either kill King's Game or fuck Kino's, but I would rather watch King's Game than I would Kino's journey at this point.
Man.
Well, we'll talk about that when we...
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to go down this list, but I had to open with the
Yeah, no one expected this.
Yep.
I did not expect this.
Yep. Well, I also didn't expect what happened in Garo, which was like course correcting in a major way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big nerdy Trekker man, and this reminded me of the episode Family, which comes right after the famous Best of Both Worlds two-parter where Picard gets all Borged.
Right.
They have this quiet, somber episode where they go back to Earth, the ship's getting fixed up, and it's just Picard in some French vineyards because he's the most British French person fighting with his brother and dealing with his PTSD. And there's like Best of Both Worlds was an amazing episode. There's a reason why it's a watershed moment in Trek history. I don't know if it would be remembered nearly as much if not for the fact that unlike almost everything else that happens in Trek, it has consequences that stick with the characters.
Yeah.
And this was very much that episode for me, except that, of course, last episode was not nearly as good as Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah.
But this, like, I touched on a little bit, like some of the people in the audience might know, I lost my brother at the age of 27 a year and a half ago. So works of fiction where a character dies and everybody just kind of moves on, that irks me. And this was like... No, the way Sophie was dealing with, this is the woman who raised her for years and years and years. She was a mentor. She was, a surrogate parent. And yeah, that's the way it works somehow, sometimes it doesn't hit you at first and you think, okay, maybe it's not so bad until it hits you. And then it hits you all at once. And this, for this dumb show about fighting...
Yeah,
fighting zombies or whatever bullshit, henshin golden armor. Like, for this of all shows to treat that with such respect and such humanity and such realism was super refreshing.
It kind of reinforced that. So I've said throughout this that Sophie is the reason I care about this show, and this all the more reinforced it that just everyone else, I couldn't give whatever. I don't fucking care. You guys are just kind of set pieces to get action to happen. Like Sophie is the really dynamic one here, and I just just the art is so good in this episode. There's a few moments where Sword is like huge and has a really tiny head, but, but like most of the episode just looks great when they're on the road trip. You just see them doing things left and right with the song kicking in. Like I really enjoyed just what they were doing to reflect on that. And you don't, as you said, you don't see that a lot in fiction. Like I feel like a lot of fiction is scared or inept to handle scared to touch the now things kind of slow down and I don't know, it was really satisfying and in a different way than I expected this show to deliver, that we were going to have some kind of coming to terms moment that I think is still going to persist, because we didn't really get a definite conclusion. We just get her kind of crying near the end, but I still think that's going to kind of be nagging at her, which I just hope kind of continues, honestly.
For me, Sophie's been kind of an interesting character because I wholeheartedly feel like she is the most fleshed out actual character in this show. But that's actually been kind of tough for me, because I want that same characterization for the characters that get focused on in terms of the overall story. And I think we're slowly starting to get that with these characters. But it is good to see Sophie get to grieve over the loss of this person that meant, again, was a mother to her. And the parallel that they did with the deer was super good. I'm very happy to see that. How do I put this into words? The moment we see that dead deer and then we see the child, we think that must have been the mother or the father, and this is an orphan deer. And the fact that, oh no, that was just another deer, here's the actual mom, that was a good bait and switch and led to a great scene with Sophie's breakdown. I don't have too much to talk about with this episode in general that hasn't already been said. So, by and large, solid falling action. Would you call this?
Yeah.
Yeah, solid falling action. I loved the action from the last episode, even though I shared your personal critiques of it. So yeah, I felt like this was needed. I'm glad we got it. We also got introduced to villains.
Yes.
Like, we didn't talk about that. Villains did show up, and they're just ragging on this night. Is like, you massive fuck up. And I kind of liked that a little bit. It's good to see that these characters are like kind of ragging on in Discount Vicious, as we've called him, is kind of lame.
Bickering villains is always one of my favorites. I like villain infighting. That is a
Yeah.
very easy dynamic.
Now let's hope they're better than the villains from Infinity Force.
For the minute we've seen of them, I feel like they're gonna be better. Like I hope.
I mean, they could hardly be worse.
Yes,
Yeah.
they really could.
But the other thing that I'll say about this episode was I thought it did an amazing job. This is the first episode where we've left the city. And so
that's true.
I think that contributed a lot to the change in tone. You know, that and the music, but it did a wonderful job of making it feel like everything's different now. And there's just, a quick shot where you see Sophie looking at her cell phone with the cracked screen that she's been carrying around, and no service out here. Like, it feels like they're alone, they're isolated. Sword has always had, Luke and Gina have been around, he's getting his orders from the waitress, he's got this whole support system, and now they are on the road, they are by themselves until Big Titty Waitress shows up again, and I thought that undercut that, and I did not like that.
What is this Nurse Joy shit going on?
Yeah,
Well, it's not a nurse. I think she's just supposed to be some magical person. Like
She
that she can just do
it,
that.
it very well could be the exact same person. I'm actually kind of curious about that. Personally, I'm glad it happened because I like to think that these guys are a little bit more well prepared for, like, if they need to leave the city. It's good to see, like, oh, don't worry, once you leave, you will have waypoints. It's not just you on your own out there in the middle of the whatever.
You know what this reminds me of? A Suda game.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Like with her just kind of being there, just like this is your your thread, knowing that we're still like having this goofy stuff. We're still in that. Like, it just felt like a really quirky thing to be there. It's just like it felt like a weird kind of like save point respite to me, and
Yeah.
like, oh, of course she's there. Of course, I got to save my progress with Big Titty Waitress Girl.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of you, where I actually liked that because I like there to be some in-universe consistency with these guys. So I liked that being there.
it was a cute scene. I just felt it worked at cross purposes with some of the stuff that I was really enjoying in the episode.
I would have definitely preferred some like a regular ass waitress because they really captured some fun Americana road trip stuff
yeah.
here, which I would have really liked.
And another thing about that, you were talking about this is the first time we've left the city. This is the first time I've liked the backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it was, but that cityscape, I felt like they put the minimal amount of effort into making that look like anything at all. But once they left, oh man, just as a guy who's driven out through the exact same areas that they're traveling through, it captured that perfectly, which makes me wonder if like they got a film crew out to just the middle of bumfuck America and just took a bunch of photos and video because it looked way better than any of the stuff in the middle of the city.
One other real quick thing, just a blink and you miss it line, but they do say, since he's going out alone to the presumed headquarters of these evil dudes, that like one of them, Discount Vicious, he already had a rough time fighting. They do say, yeah, we're dispatching some Makai alchemists to support you.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I really hope that means more Gina. Because Spike needs his Faye, Lupin needs his Fuji cakes, and Sword needs Gina to balance him out.
I agree. I miss Gina. Like, Gina, the moment we were introduced to Gina, I was like, oh, cool. What's she going to play into this? She's been in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
2.
With
she
Luke
wasn't even in the
seemingly
one with the huge battle in the city. What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Luke seemingly out of commission for a bit, I'm hoping that they'll go, well, Luke can't make it, so surprise, bam!
Yeah,
That'd
with,
be cool.
with Luke out of commission for the moment, I really hope he dies in the hospital
That
and we
would-
never have to see him again because
that'd
he's
be fine.
boring.
Aw, poor Luke. Well, the next episode looks like it's going to be Luke focused, so...
Oh boy, let's get them knifey cards out. Nah, I try not to prejudge. We'll, like, if I went into this episode not knowing what I was going to get, and it was great. So, hey, who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around with Luke. I don't believe it for a second, but I would love to be surprised.
He's gotten, like, nothing at all so far. So if they give him anything, that'll be more than what we have. So
Hey,
hopefully.
he got one thing. You got that episode in the theater.
Kieran meant positive things.
I mean,
Speaking of... Oh, did you have another point?
He got owned by the night. That was kind of cool.
That was just budget-ass Kakyoin, dude.
Speaking of good things, Inuyashiki.
Yeah.
Oh!
So good.
It's the best. It is.
Can I talk about how much I loved the scene where Mari is running through her mind of what the hell could they possibly be doing together?
That was
I
real
loved it. The music as she's like following them, and she's just like, there's her eyes like wide open when she sees them fly away. Oh God, I really enjoyed it.
And I just like this the hypothetical. I've just taken loving to young boys. I'm like, that is so Japanese, and I loved it.
So good. And like, oh man, just like, oh yeah, you'll be great for my daughter. No, there's no way.
Yeah, no, it's.
Oh, that's gross.
Like, and then at the very end, it's like illegitimate
Illegitimate
child.
child.
No, impossible. Gosh, everything about Mari in this episode was so good.
Yeah.
Even the weird conversation about Shonen Jump, and there's a part of me that's sitting back going like, okay, for us, this seems really awkward in a way. But I'm just thinking, if you're Japanese and you're familiar with all this stuff, how real does this scene have to feel?
Yeah.
Especially if you were like, say you're into the manga culture. Because it is like, I don't know, this was such a good scene to me. I feel like this show is made for anime fans, and in a good way. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not the pandering sort of way. This is if you know this culture, if you're familiar enough with it, all this stuff is got to be hitting so many different points.
Yeah, that's what I've brought up earlier, is that there's this creator just mentioning 2chan, mentioning like people, he knows what young people are talking about. He knows what they're doing. Like, he is actively aware of these discussions that surround like this pop culture phenomenon. And it's really cool seeing it actually worked into fiction in not some bullshit like derivative way. It's functioning with the narrative, and I really enjoy it.
What I will say, my concern here is that I think it's... Inuyashiki's family figured into the first couple of episodes, and they've been largely absent since then. So I have been super curious, like, what's their deal?
Yeah.
I am sort of concerned because this is episode 8 of 11. We've got 3 more to go. This seems really late in the day to be introducing new plot threads. And just knowing, you try not to let that meta knowledge affect you, but just knowing, like, you've got 3 more episodes to wrap this up, my dude.
I think as you said, the family has been absent. Just and we've also talked about I guess kind of predictions here. We've talked about Hanako has a target on their head.
Yep.
The family would ostensibly also, as soon as they have a conflict, Hiro and Inuyashiki, who are the first people he's going for? His family. Like, that would just be the easiest thing to do. And like, once he figures out he can't hurt him, do that, like, and just see what happens. Like, I can just see that happening. So I don't know. I think they're introducing these just to kind of characterize them. So when something bad happens later, now we have reason to be affected by that.
And what this show has done incredibly well is communicate a lot of feeling with not a lot of screen time. Like,
yes,
that is
true.
My God, this mangaka is so good at making you care about something.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. Some mangaka have to spend so much time with characters, and even then can be completely unsuccessful at making you care about them. I already care about Mari now.
Yeah.
Like, in one episode, just with the scene she had, I'm curious to see what will happen with Mari, how she'll figure in. That's good. That is really good.
I think that's the purpose. Is like, now just we need some reason to care about Mari because something bad is going to happen. Like, that's just what I see happening.
And it doesn't have to be something bad to her.
No,
it could be
but
something bad around her.
And it's going to involve her, and then that's going to play in. Like, that's how I see it. So like, I'm not as concerned about plot threads, because I do see we have the meteor. We also have we also have the I don't like pulling stuff from the opening because I hate when they spoil things, but there is that shot of his face flying back from space.
Yeah.
Like, I've kind of wondered if that's actually going to play into anything, and I'm starting to think it will, but I don't know. We'll see kind of where that goes. Whatever it is, I'm fucking in.
Yep. The other thing that I will say is that this is something that we touched on a little last time, which is that Inuyashiki and Ando, they were back in it this episode. They're very much passive characters at this point, and I think that's kind of a problem. Like, Hiro is active. The things he does are horrible, but he is out there moving the plot forward, and they seem pretty content with the status quo, and I think that's... I think it's about time for another confrontation between Hiro and Inuyashiki. And it was slightly frustrating that while Hiro is off slaughtering policemen and doing his thing, Inuyashiki is still just, time to go for my daily visit to the hospital. That's what I do every day now.
Yeah, it is very weird that, considering that Hiro is the biggest threat, that they haven't taken a more active role in trying to stop him, especially considering that when he kills people, we don't know how the deaths of the other like all those other Chu-Channers went, but at least that first one, he's been pretty open about like listening for these things. The fact that he wasn't on the scene by the end of that, like, it's weird that he wasn't there immediately. You think he would have taken that like as the first sign to, I need to get to that police station, I need to stop him. But then again, something that they're also pointing out, he's not as strong as Hiro, it seems. Like, Ando makes that mention of like, he was able to control multiple cars at once. It tired out Inuyashiki to control just one. Yeah. So I am kind of curious if there is just a difference between their abilities, and that's why he doesn't make his move yet. It's curious, and it's weird. And again, unfortunately, knowing how this manga got truncated, I feel like that's playing into this. But we'll have to see.
I don't necessarily see it that way. Like, maybe I'm giving it too much credit, but I just see if you have two diametrically opposed super weapons that seem to be indestructible, the only fight they are going to have is going to be the last one.
Oh yeah,
like I don't think there can be any conflict between the two until they fight, because the second they know about each other and that they're trying to get each other, the story has effectively ended. So that, like, I guess that's what I'm kind of seeing, is that the only Inuyashiki is staying low because he knows he can't take him on. Yeah. And I'm kind of okay with that. I do agree that he should be involved maybe in the maybe sleuthing a bit more. Like, that would, even like anything like that would be cooler. But when it comes to like actual conflict, I'm actually glad they're not like physically in proximity yet. But I do agree that he could probably be doing something a bit more about it. Yeah. But what that is, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't need to see them actually like slugging it out in the streets, just anything to indicate that Inuyashiki is making plans or trying to track him down or trying to find a way to defeat him. Because right now, he's diddling around trying to control a car. How's that going to help him defeat Hiro? I don't fucking know. Like, it feels like he is wasting time. Yeah. Which makes it, like, the first few episodes, we were so gung-ho. Oh, this perfect old man, this wonderful savior, we love you. I'm finding it harder to root for Inuyashiki right now because he is being so passive. He doesn't seem to be interested in taking the fight to Hiro.
I don't know. I think that's a little too aggressive on him, because if you look at when he sees this happening, he's clearly troubled. Like, he knows something bad is happening, but what can he do? Like, I feel like he's trying to take into effect that I can't do anything to him because now I paint he's going to know my family. I feel like he understands what he's dealing with, so he's trying to play passively to his advantage. Like, at least that's how I see it.
I think if they did anything to support that reading, like if Inuyashiki was shown being frustrated because there's nothing he could do, if he was shown grieving for the people who died that he couldn't save, but
I feel like that was there. You didn't feel that?
No.
I didn't see that.
Okay. I think he and I are on the... I think you can infer that if you... Like, I think that's completely fine to infer, but I don't believe that's being shown.
I feel like, the last shot we get of him is he's seeing the TV broadcast, and you just get that shot of him just like, what do I do?
But that's it. like, here's the thing with the character that we've seen from Inuyashiki before. This is this is too passive on his part. Like, and I feel like maybe the next episode we'll see more of that, and I hope to God, because I agree. The next episode needs to have a heavy focus on Inuyashiki and the.
Yeah, this is the character
yeah.
that in the first episode, when those kids were beating up on that bum, before he knows anything about his powers or what he could do, he has to act.
Yeah. And I feel like we're not getting the emotional resonance with Inuyashiki that we got before with smaller things. And, and that's just, it's totally inconsistent for me. And yeah, again, we'll see what the next episode brings. I'm going to give it that to kind of bring Inuyashiki around. I mean, this is by far still a fantastic show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And even though I feel like this is a narrative failing, I'm going to give it, like, I have already invested enough into the show to believe that they can still pull that out and wrap this up in a satisfying way. But that is a concern and a frustration I am finding with the show. A show that I love, which, good. I'm glad, as much as I wish this were perfect and I had nothing glowing to say, like, this has been a challenge for me to be like, as much as I love this show, here's a problem, an actual problem for me.
No, I love, again, that's just what I love. I love talking with you guys, like feeling about this differently. I really enjoy that, because I'm still like, maybe I'm blinded by how much I was invested earlier, but I'm still all in on this old man. I feel like there is something that we haven't seen yet that we're going to get for, like, they plant that Chekhov's meteor there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he punches Hiro into a meteor. End of the series. I'm fine. Like, that'd be awesome.
I feel like, what in the okay, we
Yeah.
have not talked about it. I don't want this asteroid bullshit. I'm sorry. I like keeping this stuff, like, it's like the whole thing with Venom and Spider-Man. I like my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, not something from space coming down and then
Wrong.
I don't know.
Wrong.
I like this whole meteor thing, and it's like, again, we are at episode 8, was it? For Inuyashiki?
Yeah. 8 of 11.
Yeah. Well, did we? Why are we doing this whole asteroid thing?
I'm curious to see where they go with it, because
Yeah.
on paper, what it reminds me of is like Watchmen, where you're seeing...
Yes, that's the vibe I got too.
Yeah, like you're seeing all these interpersonal conflicts between superheroes, but in the back of everybody's mind, you realize, like, yeah, that's cool and all, but the U.S. and the Soviets are going to trade nukes, and then none of this is going to matter.
Yeah.
Like, I like having that doomsday counter in the background, if that is, in fact, what this is, and we just don't know yet.
Yeah, but I liked that better in Watchmen because that was representative of the times. That was very much a, hey, remember the Red Scare? Yeah, we're going to use that as a framing device for the rest of this, and that worked well there. This gets introduced damn near the end of the show and is providing a conflict that I feel is incredibly manufactured. It's unnecessary. It's, I don't know.
Well, this, you know what? I think when it was, this is what I feel is the manifestation of, hey, you got to cut this short.
Yeah.
I think putting this meteor here is that. That said, I'm not as bothered about it by you, because we still can't detect meteors very well. If you didn't know, like, NASA is still very much scared of asteroids. And if anything, like, that is so plausible that could just fucking happen. Like,
Yeah,
that's
like-
why I'm okay with it.
Like, here's the thing. Statistically, the Earth is due for another dinosaur killer.
Yes.
But it's over such a long period of time that when I say due statistically, that means it could be another couple million years.
Yeah.
And not be outside of the realm of possibility.
And it could
But-
never happen. It could never happen, or it could happen tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
the cool.
Well,
That's the
yeah,
cool
that's-
and terrifying thing about.
Yeah.
And that very reason is why I'm okay with it. I get what you mean
not
about it
saying
just
it's not-
coming there, but yeah.
I'm not saying it's not plausible.
Yeah.
But in terms of the story, is it necessary?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. It would be exactly as plausible in My Little Pony, but that doesn't mean that it has a place there.
No, I agree. Again, I think this is if you want anything that's kind of been a alarm sign of, oh shit, we got to wrap it up, it's the meteor.
By the
So
way,
I totally feel that.
By the way, a meteor coming to like wipe out all of ponykind. As somebody who has not watched the later seasons but has seen clips from them, actually, it is completely possible at this point. They've already had Dragon Ball fights. It's crazy. Anyway, so we'll talk about My Little Pony more next week.
But right now, can we talk about the meteor that I want to come and crash into King's Game and finally fucking kill this show? God damn it.
Ben?
Why? I did watch this one with people, by the way.
Oh, you
Oh,
did?
wow.
You
and,
did? Okay.
And still hated it.
Oh.
Because it's bad.
I mean,
Hey,
no,
like,
it is bad.
It is, yeah, it is. You know what? All I was thinking about when I was watching this, like, I just had this kind of little conversation with myself. I was like, can something go from it's good, it's bad, it's good? What happens if it circles back around? Is that like next level bad, or does that like next level good?
God, you've got an interesting measure there.
I
Look,
feel like it only goes up.
I
You only get
want
one way.
to say something about this show. It is, how do I put this? It is one of the most entertaining shows for me that we've watched this season, but not intentionally and not something that I would have ever fought for. Like, I have consistently killed this show because I don't recommend it to anybody. I don't want them to watch this. I don't want them to get involved in this show. It's bad. It was probably bad when it was originally written. It was a bad adaptation. But I'd still watch this over Kino's, because if you put a gun to my head and say watch another episode of Kino's Journey or watch another episode of King's Game, I'd rather talk about King's Game because I'd have more to talk about. With Kino's Journey, I just don't have that much to talk about. I'm not that interested. With King's Game, at least I have more things. I'm like, so this decision was so terrible, or the things that are happening here are so bad.
I'm
I
exactly
totally
the opposite.
disagree. Yeah, I am completely the opposite in that regard.
like at worst, Kino's is like, okay, here's an interesting idea, and even if the execution was bad, we can talk about that idea, and that's interesting. This has no interesting ideas, no redeeming qualities. It's just poorly written characters acting inconsistently for no goddamn reason, and I hate it.
Okay. Maybe not more to talk about, but I'd talk about it more emphatically.
I think that's just because of how you get invested in shows.
Yeah.
Because
maybe.
you do have to invest in Kino's, whereas King's Game you don't have to invest shit.
By the way,
What, are we doing it?
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay.
Just say it.
Clack the thing board.
Yep. So we'll be right back. And we're back.
Just hold up this blood-soaked rock and lick it.
And lick it!
And lick it. And then, does anybody have any objection to what I'm about to do? Kieran, Scott, Tyler, I'm just gonna
I'm just gonna sit
assault
here.
somebody.
But yeah, like, see, you just seemed like you had a bit of spark of fun there.
Yeah, but that's entirely what I'm bringing to the table. That has nothing to do with this god-awful show.
Oh, man. See, I disagree. I think this show brings so much stupid shit that I can't help but laugh. And that, like, if it pulls something from me, and it is rare for a show to do that. Like, I was watching this alone in bed, and I was crying laughing at the hat on the decapitated body.
Okay, so remember when I said that this show gets oddly mean-spirited?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't dig on that. I don't dig on it. I hadn't digged on it when it did episodes before, and I don't dig on it now. There's something that takes me out of the cheesiness of all of it when these characters are being put through these terrible things, but there's no struggle against it because all of these people are the fucking worst. They're stupid. They're mean-spirited. They're hateful. Like when Teruaki or Teriyaki or whatever his face is, when he when he's like, now I give the points to you, you dumb bitch. You should never have crossed me. I was like, really? Like this is the way you're going with it? Like he's basically acting like, oh, I got you, you bitch. And it's like, okay, that tone shift was odd, but I guess not out of place in this show. And then and not only does it not work, but nobody dies out of it. Everyone just gets their hands broken for no good reason. And then we're back to square one. Congratulations. We wasted an entire episode and now 2 people are crippled. Oh, okay, no, somebody did die by the end of it, which was the only good part of this episode to me because I felt like that was actually a decent setup and execution, pun intended.
I only dig this show because it evokes things from me, like anger, like disgust, like laughter, and just pure what the fuck. It is terribly written. It's an absolute garbage fire of a show. There is some shit that is just abhorrently, unsalvageably bad. The first half of the episode is completely awful. I fucking hated it. But the second half, I was at least getting some, like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? I hope Rue doesn't show up. He can't handle these deaths very well. I got your hat. I got your hat, little buddy. Put the hat on you, little. She takes his hat, and it was so funny.
Didn't even put the hat on the head.
I
put it on the stump.
And just like, smile a little.
See,
like,
if it were consistent with moments like that, then yeah, that could have been an enjoyable scene. But coming as it does towards the end of this just slog of an episode, by the time it comes, I'm just sitting here blank-faced like, this is it? This is the thing that's supposed to... No, fuck you. No.
I don't slight you at all. Like,
No,
if
this is
it is
this
fun.
this show is the boyfriend that brings me a bouquet of flowers after he spent all week beating me. Like, no, that doesn't make up for it. Fuck you. Get out of here.
You know,
But he's got a big dick too, so it's okay.
Wait, where's the big dig? What part of the show is the big dig? Is that the Rias on fire scene? Because I feel like he's impotent then.
No, it's what's her face's tits.
Wait, whose?
What's her face's? She's got big knockers.
So King's Game is terrible and it will probably die next week.
Here's the thing. I could have said that the last 4 weeks running, and it keeps not dying.
Hey,
Well,
man, I was
hey.
on you with the wheel, and I didn't want the audience to have to vote.
Hey,
So there we go.
look, Kino's Journey died this week. And honestly, it could have gone down to the vote, and people probably would have killed King's Game. It was really our fault for killing Kino's Journey.
You guys voted
You-
to kill.
you-
You guys
you-
mad at me. You're the one that voted to kill it. Don't act like you're upset.
Yeah, I mean that. Like, to be fair, this is just how it poured out. You can't be all that mad.
Because
I can be pretty mad.
here's the thing with Kino's, I was bored as fuck, man.
Yeah.
That was a boring episode.
At least it gave me something different to be bored with every couple minutes.
Yes,
Well,
it did.
is that the next show on the list, by the way?
It is. In
Okay,
fact,
then
so we
let-
can just
then,
go
then
right over
let's
to that.
let's talk about how boring Kino's Journey was and how it will never bore us again.
Because the thing is, the
Guys, Kino's a cute girl, though.
Kino is a cute girl.
We now know canonically.
I love that shot of just the like completely really hardcore effeminate close up.
And that's the thing. Not even that hardcore effeminate, but because Kino is so androgynous, it doesn't take much.
Yeah. It was just a little gloss on the lip and a
Yeah.
few extra things. That's all you needed. As you said, the part that really got me was the morality system one. That was really cool. I enjoyed the idea because what I realized Kino's is to me, as someone who enjoys fiction and writing, and I did a whole bunch of short stories all throughout college, it's writing prompts.
Yep.
That's what I like. Is just here's this setting. Now you make a good story with that.
Watch Black Mirror.
Oh, I love Black Mirror.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then you'll see this. You'll see that whole plot line done well and not done terribly. Because I'm sorry, I hated that whole scene.
Really?
That's the thing. If it had 20 the entire episode to explore it, it could have done
Yeah,
something
that could have been
interesting with
really
it.
cool.
Instead, they set up the system and then only have enough time to shrug their shoulders
Yeah.
and go, and he doesn't wind up murdering anybody. Hey, great.
Yeah.
Well, the
like-
one thing I thought was interesting was that he at the the only cool like compelling part of that was at the outset he said, "I did this wanting to kill," and then his last sentence is he says, "I failed as a person,"
Yeah. So for
but he didn't. He did all this awesome stuff. He has helped this entire country, but his purposehood that he put on himself, he failed that. So he views himself as a failure where everyone else fucking loves him
Yeah.
because he didn't want to kill someone.
And
I
so-
thought that was really interesting.
For those who might not know what we're talking about, this is a country in which
Oh, yeah.
every
Oh, yeah.
action is awarded karma points, plus or minus. Like pretty much straight out of Fallout 3. You do a good thing, here's 10 karma points. You do a bad thing, here's -5 karma points. You don't get punished for crimes unless you are total in the negative. So if I spend all day giving thousands of dollars to charity, then I can, I don't know, punch somebody and I won't get punished for it. It'll take away all my good points. And so the president of this country, super like wonderful philanthropist, did all these wonderful things. He's an old man at the end of his life of great acts. He says, I'm the first person in the history of our country to have so many positive points that I could commit murder and get away with it. And now I have nobody to kill. I have nobody that I hate so much that I want to kill them, so I'm a failure. All these good works that I did are worth nothing because I don't get the thing that I wanted out of it.
Yeah, it's like he accrued all this money and can't spend it on anything. It's interesting. It was just like, now I have all this money, but I can't do anything with it. And it was an interesting look at it. But if they gave that, they could have given this country the whole episode, and I would have been all about it. Instead, we get more bullshit, and I'm just like,
I will throw down that the organ music that they play as he's talking about, now I can finally commit the murder that I've always wanted, was real dope.
Yeah.
That was real good.
But I didn't like the scene because primarily I loved that setup, but I had seen it done better in other places. I liked that I liked that character's motivation, but it just seemed really abrupt to me. And maybe that's the point of I've actually been doing this because I want to murder somebody.
And I think that's the problem. They didn't have time to do it any way but abrupt.
And that's the thing that bothered me is that I like these concepts, but they consistently fall short for me because I don't feel like they're explored in any actual interesting way. They're more presented, but it's like, okay, cool. Now I'm gonna go watch another type of show like this and get that actually explored. And
you have to be. It's a type of, because here's the thing about fiction and a lot of other works. Some of it you have to invest yourself into, and if you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to get that from it. Some music is super dense, and you got to try really hard to understand it.
Well, one of the bigger issues here is that, and maybe this is maybe the problem here is that I've taken in a lot of media, a lot of books, a lot of movies, a lot of shows. Everything it's presented so far, Kino's Journey, by and large, I've seen done better in other places. So none of these concepts are new or interesting to me. They're just concepts with flat characters.
Guys, did you know that Kino's a girl but can't cook well? That's hilarious, right? That's worth a whole long scene.
Actually, the interesting thing is not necessarily that she can't cook well. The thing is, she makes her chicken too hot. She talks about the fact that she wants her food spicy, and I actually liked that contrast of this petite,
okay, that's hilarious then. Thanks for explaining that to me.
I don't know.
Yeah, you seem much more interested in that than I. I couldn't give less of a shit about it.
I liked the KFC part.
I liked the visuals that they were doing. There were a lot of really cool transitions in this one. I like the president looking to the sky, and then his face kind of is the screen wipe to the I don't know. They did a lot of really cool stuff visually, and when they flash back to everyone, and they're all just red and black with their mouths spewing fire.
But I wish Kino's Journey would use more of that kind of imagery.
I know. Me too.
The stark contrast of colors. They do that every once in a while, and every time they do, I'm like, oh, cool. That's visually compelling to me. I'm 90% of the show. By the way, again, this show is boring to watch to me visually. Half the time, while the backgrounds are really pretty, the actual composition of the shots is not engrossing.
I'll agree.
The pacing is too slow. The character designs are the most boring character designs I've seen in a long time, and they shouldn't be. They've got a lot of things about them that could be really interesting, but they're not, and which is why I think people prefer the original Kino's Journey. Besides the fact that they took more time with the stories, it is way more visually compelling.
Yeah, that's ultimately why. That is ultimately why I gave this a kill verdict, because I have been the one to go I recognized every fault you're saying. I understand that it's not gonna present you with all this. It's not trying to really engross people. It's look at this thing, look at this little parable, and if you think that's cool, come on in. Let's talk about it. Let's think about it. But you have to bring that to the table. It doesn't bring it for you. And I feel like the previous versions, be it the novels or the other anime, do that in a much better way. I just feel like this remake really dropped the ball on its execution. It has really cool content, but as far as it comes to conveying that to the screen, not as much.
Although I will admit, and this is kind of mean-spirited on my part, the fact that you have all these people. This is the one with Shiro, was it? And the dog and T. The fact that he's like, wait, so why did you put yours up there? And she's like, well, I mean, otherwise, what's the point?
So this is the company where there's these big Buddha statues, and everybody puts their wishes, hangs them up there, and T's wish is, I wish for everybody else's wishes to come true. Aww. And then, when asked, why'd you do that? She says, well, this isn't going to do anything anyway, so why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that's like loves that little bit of kind of bleak like worldview that she's got there. It's kind of like I can see how some people would think that's kind of try hard, but for that girl, I was like, you know what? Yeah.
Well, she was raised by robots on a boat, so I don't know. I feel like she'd be a little detached from everyone else.
T to this point is still the only character in this show that is consistently
A character, yes.
yes, a character. And we didn't talk about it much this week. Like last week, I actually kind of liked her stuff. Like as we all kind of found it a little bit boring that basically nothing happened. I like that part of her character. She's still figuring herself out. She's still like she has these habits and these like. If the show had been more about T, maybe I'd be more interested. But at the end of the day, both Kino and Shiro kind of felt interchangeable. And you know what? Screw it. Do it all over and make the show about T and the dog, and we're good. I will watch that show. I will watch the show about T and the dog. Otherwise, it's dead. It's gone.
It is gone. I mean, this is, if you guys want, I know I've been like the only advocate defender of Kino. So anybody out there who like is still watching the show, I'm probably still going to keep watching it, but like I can't recommend it at this point. I do think, I haven't seen it all the way through, but the episodes I did see of the original one, I did like more, and I was kind of hoping to get something more dynamic from this version. I just don't think this adaptation is the way to experience this story.
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say, the one basis on which I can recommend it is that because it is totally episodic, you can just go and watch the episodes that are actually good, and you're fine.
And they exist.
Yeah,
I've,
like
I've watched them.
Yeah, like episode 5 I thought was fantastic. I really liked episode 7 with the liar country. Like, I mean, there are good episodes you can watch, and I just take those as you will, and you don't have to worry about the bad shit.
Yeah.
But speaking of good shit that everybody should watch, how about that MMO Junkie, though?
Oh!
Yeah. Yeah.
So, opens up with one of those nice fake outs because it's Morioka showering. And so, once I was done fapping, but no, because you're not sure what the context of this is.
Yeah.
And you think it might be that like she feels so like, oh my God, he was Lily the whole time. I'm freaked out. I can't handle this. Turns out this is a flash forward. This is her at the end of the episode. She's changed out of her wet clothes and she's showering at Sakurai's apartment after they've reached some kind of understanding.
Yeah.
And I thought that was clever. That was well done.
Yeah.
Nice little fake out there that I appreciated.
I really did, because once they were like, hey, come back to my place. Oh, I got a shower. I was like, oh man, okay, now I get it. That was cool.
I'm kind of, it's interesting because I sometimes love and I sometimes hate when shows or movies will do that, like show a scene from later and then work up to it. I liked that here because it really did make me wonder the entire episode, like, how do we get to that point?
Yeah.
And also it helps to ease some of the, again, I feel like one of the problems with manga and anime of this type is that the will they, won't they is so frustrating. No, this is very much a, where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
So you're not so frustrated when things kind of go up and down during the episode because you already have this confirmation of we know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
So let's watch this unfold.
Yeah, I will say that, so you said that one of the things that you could really, Kieran, recognize and relate to was Morioka and how she misinterprets the scene at the convenience store.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, like 100%, like it has delved enough into her and her issues that felt super organic, super realistic, that this minor interaction would just send her into this tailspin of not believing she's good enough for Sakurai.
Yeah.
And self-loathing, like, no, I didn't put on enough makeup.
Yeah, I look terrible. You don't want to be seen with me. And God, if I haven't like felt that before. Like it was just, that was a very, this show knows, this show knows me, man.
I also thought it was very telling how she thought she was meeting with Koiwai, and she like reached a halfway state between her normal, like, I'm staying home all day, I'm not going to shower, I'm a slob, and like super made up for a date. This is like, okay, I made myself up just enough to go out. I think that really reveals how she feels about Koiwai versus how she feels about Sakurai when it turns out it's him. It's, oh no, I am not nearly made up enough for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that was the very subtle touch that, like, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So I enjoyed that a lot. What I found more frustrating, because we haven't gone as much into him, was Sakurai and how he leaps straight from her. She focuses very much on their online relationship. Like, please, let's still be friends. Let's still play online together. Are you going to log on tomorrow? And he interprets that as, oh, she's telling me that she is only interested in this online relationship. This is not going anywhere in real life. I'm bummed out about that because I really like her. That was... I was humming "Kiss the Girl" the whole time from The Little Mermaid.
Oh, really? Because I that felt really like normal to me.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I actually, so where you guys have talked about Morioka's response to these things, Sakurai's response has been the one that I've identified a lot with. I mean, not that I don't identify with Morioka. I have a lot of insecurities, like flat out. I used to be like 350 pounds. I used to be very homely. I know what it's like to overcome a lot of personal insecurities, but I also know what it's like to be friends, lovers, boyfriends with people who have serious self-esteem issues.
Yeah. And
it can be very easy to interpret their personal issues with themselves as issues with me.
Yes, absolutely.
When she runs away after the store clerk says, "Is that your girlfriend?" And she's like, "Oh no, it's not like that." There's a part you can tell when sometimes Sakurai is like, she doesn't like me. She's not interested in me like that. No, she's totally interested in you like that. She doesn't think you are, so she's taking the appropriate response to that, or the one that she thinks.
Here's the thing. I think there are two reasons why that frustrates me. One is because Sakurai is the guy in this relationship. I identify more strongly with him naturally, being a guy myself, meaning that when he does something like that, it reminds me of something in myself that I don't particularly like. So it's less that I don't identify enough with him, it's that I identify too much with him. I think that's one part of it, and I think the other part is that this is something we talked about with Just Because. I think this is a very Japanese thing to not address these things head on, and I think as an American viewer that can be frustrating for me because there's a cultural difference there.
Yeah, I think that's what Scott was saying about the tension being the will they, won't they. That is amplified to the nth degree in a lot of Japanese fiction of this ilk, which I enjoyed. I feel like the flash forward got us enough of that tension of, does she end up going home? Is that why she's showering? No, I feel like that was a good balance of that will they, won't they shit. And God, if they didn't just get everything, every beat I loved across this whole journey to them now in the apartment. And if I haven't been in that fucking situation of, oh, fuck, I came over without thinking. Oh, fuck, I invited them without thinking. Now what? Like, if I haven't been there.
And so, man, and not to mention, gosh, there's so many scenes to unpack in this episode. Like when they get back to the apartment, and she's showering, and he doesn't know, like, okay, what clothes will fit her. By the way, I watched the previews for the next episode. She looks so goddamn cute in that sweater. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, I don't watch them.
Oh, it's so good. Wait for her in the sweater. It's the cutest.
No, she's top waifu this season.
Yeah, I know. Oh man, by far. So at the end of the day, I love the way that this show has depicted friendships and relationships. It has been just the right amount of, like, how do I put this? Entertaining while not like getting too caught up in its own, like, in the reality of these situations. To not be 100% realistic, but real enough with a lot of the consequences and the personal psychoses of these characters to identify with them, to feel for them. It's hard to hit both of those. Like, a lot of these shows will go one or the other. It's like completely unrealistic. How the heck did they end up, feeling or thinking these things? Or it's the other direction of, okay, yeah, I know how this can be, and this is too real. This is taking too slow. This is not entertaining. So, I can't believe that the next episode is the last episode. Oh, my God. We're about to be out of MMO Junkie, and I don't know how to respond to that.
I feel like this story has been the perfect length for me. I was so worried going in that this was going to be some bullshit, and we get like one scene of them even in the game, and I was,
Which,
bueno.
And I didn't know this, and I was curious because I was like, okay, are we getting a second season? This was 2 volumes of a manga. We're getting all of it. There's
Awesome.
nothing after this next episode. It is the end.
Okay.
Good. That's good.
I would say this is good, except for, and this is something that I hit on over and over in our first couple of weeks here, is how much this reminds me of Genshiken. Mm-hmm. The Genshiken anime ends where most romance stories end, which is the guy and the girl getting together. The Genshiken manga goes on for like 2 or 3 more volumes and deals with these characters who are very young and very awkward. What is it like with them actually being in a relationship together? And turns out that was fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Because it handled that with that same amount of sensitivity and affection and warmth for these characters, and them overcoming their issues and coming to terms with, you know, when you're young and you've never been in a relationship before, because so much media ends with that first kiss, you have no model, you have nothing to go on for what now. And it was very much those 2 characters finding out, like dealing with the conflict between their idealized happily ever after and what a real adult relationship is like. Mm-hmm. So little fiction handles that at all, like good or bad. They just don't deal with it. And this story has dealt with everything so well. I would love to see this writer tackle what comes next. And it is sad to me that we're almost certainly not going to get that.
So I finally get where the recovery of an MMO junkie part comes into all of this. Mm-hmm. And it's not recovering from being an MMO junkie. Mm-hmm. They're still both MMO junkies. Yep. It's their personal recovery from, you know, people who suffered loss of things, from people who suffered stress from things. Like, this is their recovery as people. Mm-hmm. And while I still think Recommendation of a Virtual Life is a better name, I now personally understand, okay, recovery of an MMO junkie works, it's just misleading.
Yes, I was getting that too near the end, as like there's only one thing with the game there, and I like recommendation as the, you know, this wouldn't have happened without this kind of stuff. This is really dynamic and interesting. But this is I totally see the recovery part now, that these are people dealing with deep-seated issues that they have neglected because they like playing games instead of dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how it tackles that, where, yeah, it's not here saying, like, no, MMOs will ruin your life.
Yeah.
But MMOs are also not enough. It is not Recommendation of a Wonderful Virtual Life. Play MMOs, they'll solve all your problems. It's you can have your fun, you can meet some really cool people and form relationships, but it is not a replacement for having in-person friends.
No, it's a balance, which I think they've really hit on, and I was scared they were not going to emphasize the balance of real relationships and online ones. I'm really glad they highlighted both. Yeah,
that is very important to me as well, because at the end of the day, I'm somebody who's made lots of relationships online, but it is I've talked about this like publicly plenty of times. It is okay to be online, to make friendships online. They can't be all you have. They cannot. You have to have something in person with real people to build real social skills and to have a fulfilling life. And I'm glad this show, not wholeheartedly, like full on, but competently and actively tackles that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we'll come right back and we'll talk about other waifu this week, which is Ancient Magus Bride. See you in a sec.
So, Monster Elias, would you fuck YN?
It depends. I don't know about the tentacle tail.
Oh, please. That's like the best trait, man.
Actually, you know what? I take it back, because Snake Girl, Mia from, I need that to coil around me. I don't know, man.
Coiling.
Yeah, that's good shit. So I felt this episode, I think you mentioned that it felt like 2 episodes in one.
Yeah.
They did have a lot going on here, but I ultimately think that was to this episode's benefit, because they did not dwell long on the cabin and the vampire. And I loved just kind of touching on that, because what that reinforced to me was that we're going on a trip, and I'm just gonna randomly go by this one place. Look how cool this random pit stop I made is.
Because it makes the world feel so fleshed out, and I need that, and I loved it.
I love it. Like, this show is so good. The setting is so fucking good throughout this entire show, and I love once she's done with that, and gets to the woods, and then we get some nice, cool shit with Elias over out. Oh, God, I love what this show is doing with the setting, and I can't get enough of it. I really enjoyed the quick little montage scene of her going around just doing daily shit with her familiar, just hanging out. Like, I really, really liked it.
I think it also did a lot to solidify the Ruth Chise relationship, which is very much he is literally a dog, but it's very much like his relationship with Isabel. It's a sibling relationship.
Yes.
Which I think is very cool to see, like, cemented. It was what we were getting from the last episode, but to see how it plays out in daily life when they're not under attack by a horrible chimera beast.
Yeah, I loved him mentioning, she was like, oh, you're looking around. Are you getting more settled in? And he's like, abashedly going, I just instinctively have to sniff around because I'm a dog. Like, I love that.
It was very interesting to me because this character was introduced not necessarily late into the story, but he was not a central part of the dynamic from the beginning. And I was wondering if this show was going to do that, if they were going to introduce more characters into this dynamic, because I never saw the OVAs. I had no idea that Ruth was going to be a part of
the ensemble.
So I know we had, oh God, I always forget her name and I feel bad. The maid.
Silky.
Silky?
She is usually called Silky. Occasionally they call her Silver.
Because when they say silver, I think they're saying Kino something. Like, they're saying that person of silver is what they're translating to as silver. So I think Silky is just a bit more of a humanized name, I think.
Yeah, that was definitely, without knowing the Japanese, that's definitely the impression I got, which is that Silky is like a nickname.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
That said, since I screwed up and called the other character Silver, the sorcerer, I've been trying to call her Silky in my mind just to keep them straight.
I first of all, I still like Silky. She always has a very limited, she gets limited screen time, but every time she's on there, I feel like she's a great force on screen. She never feels entirely passive, and that's good. I did not know how Ruth was going to play into all of this. I was a little bit nervous about that. Like, she's got a familiar now. He's not going anywhere. And I'm very satisfied. He was a dynamic that I think the show was missing. And he played very well here. He's very defensive of her, but he's also like, it does not feel like a romantic angle at all, and that's good. Because we know where the romance here lies. There doesn't need to be any of that triangle bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's a great new character, and I'm glad he was introduced, and he's now part of the ensemble.
Agreed. He meshes perfectly.
Yeah, and you called him a late introduction, and really we're not even to the midpoint yet, because this is one of the shows that's going to be continuing on into the next season.
Yeah, well, as I said, he's not a late entry, but again, he just wasn't part of that original.
I agree. It was because the show sets up as, okay, here's our conflict, the monster dude and girl, and then, oh, cool, now there's the dog, and now what's going to get freaky?
I expected any reoccurring characters to be from the outside. Characters that would come back, like the Alchemist.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, oh, cool, so those are the kinds of characters we'll get coming and going. I did not expect another mainstay, so...
Yeah, I felt he was a perfect addition to this. Anytime that Chise is the focus of an episode, I find myself gravitating to it a bit more than the others. And the fact that now we have we get the messenger from the Land of Dragons saying, yo, I need you. And now I'm just like, let's go.
And they are very specifically summoning Chise. Not Elias, not anybody else. It's no, we have business with Chise.
Yeah. Which I have firmly cemented how much I loved that episode. I can't wait to see what they go back and do, because this series has yet to fail me since then. I feel like it has just been constantly rising on par, and I am just fine. It doesn't have to reinvent its own wheel here. I just need to keep getting more and more of this, and I will love it.
Yeah, me too.
Scott said something in the main show that I wanted to revisit, which is when Chise goes into Elias' bedroom and he is looming over her. I think this is the most overtly threatening, certainly, and also the most overtly sexual that those two have ever gotten. It's damn near an upskirt. And I don't think that's there for titillation. I think that is entirely there for, like, again, examining this weird relationship that the two of them have, which is ambiguously sexual, which has an ambiguous power dynamic, which is just ambiguous in so many ways. And this is playing that for discomfort, like as much as they've done since the first couple of episodes, probably.
Yeah, and there's also that moment where she's looking at his body. And look, from my perspective, I'm sorry, the way they're drawing him is almost this kind of like vaguely attractive, but also vaguely terrifying and gross, and it's weird because like they still draw him as kind of this hideously beautiful creature. If I had to be honest. Like, he is terrifying when he gets all monstrous, but there's also this part about him that, and it's because of her relationship with him that feels almost soft and inviting, even with his monstrous, like, form.
Yeah, I don't know if it, like, not regal, but there's just something about him that still feels like there's something, like, some majesty I have with his body, and, like, there's something just fascinating that she wants to, I feel, explore in not only, like, you know, in more ways than one,
Well,
and having this overbearing tension here is now, like, do you really want to get into this? Like, do you really want to know how deep this shit goes?
Yeah, and I 100% think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just a pervert.
No, I don't think him looving over the bed and drooling on her is anything less than sexual.
Which, by the way, nice psychological hit there with the mom.
With the mom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that.
So it cuts from that to Chise having a dream, or you're not sure if it's a dream or a flashback, of her mom looming over her in a very similar way and saying, "I never should have given birth to you." Like, yeah, talk about getting into some Freudian shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it kind of made me think, you know, what else? It's what I felt the show was trying to address. Of Chise doesn't view him as monstrous. What does she view as monstrous? Her mother. And that's like kind of what I was getting, like feeling there. Is she still has to resolve this conflict about herself. She still feels that nagging, like this sense that she doesn't belong because of this issue with her mom. And that's like, I can't fully accept someone until I reconcile this about myself.
None of the monsters, none of the horrors she has seen has given her worse PTSD than her parents.
And what a fucking human thing, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love that. Like, Chise is such a well-written character in that regard. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, well, there have been definitely some terrifying non-human characters in here, like I forget what his name was, the kid.
Joseph. Is that the one we were calling Silver?
Yeah.
The tiny kid with the praying mantis,
Isabel.
yeah.
Is that Joseph?
I don't
Yeah,
remember. They called him some other name that he doesn't like.
Cartophilus or something like
Yeah,
that.
Cartophilus.
Yeah.
But he when he finally says his own name, he calls himself Joseph, which is another historical name for the wandering Jew.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
But, and again, I didn't watch the OVAs that led up to this, but as I'm led to believe, the worst people in Chise's life will all be human. They've all been completely, entirely, no magic, just full-on humans. So the fact that all of this fantasy, all of these otherworldly creatures have done less damage than people I think is a really interesting dynamic here, and I'm all about seeing that fully like explored and developed.
That was one of my favorite things about Harry Potter. Was the scariest villain to him, like near the beginning, was fucking
his
parent.
family. Yeah,
Like I love that, and I think that's such a very like human thing to touch on. That I'm not scared of these fucking monsters. I'm scared about the people that I know can psychologically affect me and have in the past. Like she went to kill herself because of people, not because of this shit.
Yeah.
So there's the scene at the end where she finally finds Elias in the grove, and he's like hanging out he's face first on the shore of this little pond. His body's in the water, his head's on the shore, and he's more or less back to himself. And he says something like, "Yeah, I just needed some time to get my body back into balance." And she's sitting here like, something else is going on here. I still don't fully understand what's happened. And she says, "So you're not going to tell me what's going on, are you?" And he says, "Yeah, you were always quick to understand." Like, as in, like, "Yep, that's right, not going to tell you." And she is really troubled by this. She is finally really troubled by the fact that he keeps so many secrets from her. He keeps so much of himself hidden from her. Long after, at least from my point of view, like, dude, you need to trust her though.
Well, that's the interesting thing of that's part of his development.
Oh yeah, absolutely is.
And I'm very, again, happy to see that Chise is making an active effort to not only get to know him better, but also puts it upon him to be like, hey, so like this is not okay.
Yeah, you got to tell me shit.
And that's just started here.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
we'll
this
see
is
how-
like the first time that's really come up.
Yeah, and I suspect that that's going to be a large part of their relationship of you've got to open up, and I have to make more of an effort.
And the power dynamic flips there for just a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
It goes into chibi mode.
Yeah.
And Elias asks, "Are you angry?" She says, "I'm not angry." And then he's like pestering her, like, then what are you thinking? Huh? And all of a sudden he's trying to please her, which I think is like he is bothered by the fact that she is shutting herself off from him, which A, I think is a really cool development in their relationship. Also B, felt super relatable and super human. Guys,
If that hasn't ever happened.
yeah,
like-
people in the audience, if you're in a relationship, what Elias does there is super understandable, super relatable. Don't do that. Don't pester
Yeah.
people. If you ask the person you're with, are you angry? And they say, no, I'm not angry, but they're very clearly angry, just let it be, and they will, like, give them their space, and they'll talk about it when they're ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Because
and-
you are only going to make them more angry by pestering them over it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and that works. It works both ways. That's a common thing of like, oh, a girl says, "I'm not angry," and then the guy is always like, "Well, obviously you are, but what do I do now?" No, guys do it too. Trust me,
Oh, yeah.
guys do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, if you are angry and you get asked, "Are you angry?" the proper response is not, "I'm not angry." It's, "Yes, but I need to think over this, and we'll talk about it later."
Yeah, it's communication is very weird for human beings because we have a lot of personal instincts. We work off of the things that we learned when we were younger. It's difficult. And it's always interesting to see how fiction handles this sort of thing, how stories handle this sort of thing, because it's never simple. Communication, like everyone thinks, well, why don't they just say, well, I'm just frustrated and I don't know how to talk about it.
Yep.
It never works like that.
In some elements of fiction, sometimes it can be resolved simply with the discussion, but this is not that situation
no.
here.
Yeah.
Because there's what I really enjoyed was that because we come back to the house and we haven't talked about, because he's shut in his room for like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Elias has been stuck away, and this has been a huge moment for him. Not only did he before in the cat island, he says, "You are just an experiment to me," like all this kind of, and then he outwardly showed affection to her in this way that he hadn't before with the whole fight. He transformed, he did all this shit. So he needed time to go, okay, so I guess I was lying. How much am I lying to myself? Am I lying to her? I really enjoyed, this is the most human he has been in a while, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one thing to say, "Hey, I'm sort of a sociopath. Let's see if I can empathize with somebody." It's a totally different thing when somebody actually works their way into your heart and you start to care about them. That is not an easy thing to deal with when you're not accustomed to it. The power that this person now has over you.
Yeah, and as you said, I love that she realizes this and took that to a degree that she hadn't before. And I think now that we've seen that she has the capacity to eat him if she is upset, that we might have some tension later on in the series. I foresee we'll have something between the two of them, and I have so much faith in this show, and it's just been constantly just the quality. If it's not up to every episode, it is consistently good.
Yeah.
Hot damn.
And this kind of tension between our two romantic leads can so often feel forced. Like, oh, there's a wacky misunderstanding and she's mad. Here it all feels character driven. It all feels organic. And that, I think, is what gives me the faith that they will resolve it in that same way. Sorry, Scott.
I was just going to say, gosh, what was I going to say? Man, what else is there to say? This show, again, I said that I feel like it's hit its baseline, and as long as it continues at this standard of quality, I can easily recommend this show to anybody. I'm so excited for next week, and maybe actually more than for any other show. Like, it's odd. This show was one of those ones where I could see the potential, and now I'm feeling that potential.
It grew on me hard.
Yeah, whereas Inuyashiki started just like from the very first episode of, oh my god, I love this show.
Yeah.
This show has worked its way up to like, okay, now I need to see what happens next week every week.
Yeah.
I was not excited about it by episode, like this excited about it by episode 3 by a mile. I was like, but I still believed in it.
You should have seen me when I got done with that OVA. I was
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, because you came to me and you were like, the OVA, whatever. She sees monsters. Who the fuck cares? Don't watch it.
I was not excited about this show at all. And starting with the proper episode 1, it's been a slow burn and a slow build, but in a very satisfying way, not in a, you kind of got to slog through some shit before you get to the good part. Like, no, all of that early storytelling, excepting the OVA, which is still bad, don't watch it. But from episode 1, all of that early stuff all feeds into the good parts that we're just now starting to see, I think, this show reach its full potential, and that's super satisfying.
Yeah, I'm much looking forward to it from here. And let me just say that I can't believe I would have never pinned down that 2 shows I would have loved from this season are romance shows. I never would have expected
Right.
So
that.
MMO Junkie and Inuyashiki.
Yes. The relationship with that show in my hand.
The love of a robot, of an elderly robot for a high school boy is a tale as old as time.
It is. But what is human?
What is more human than the love between a robot and a...
Yeah, actually, 90% of the time, oh man, I was about to say I don't like romance shows, but then again, some of my favorites are Fruits Basket and Ouran High School.
You
Host
love
Club.
romance shows.
Damn it.
Yeah, you're a little dork.
Here's the problem. I love romance shows, but I only love good ones, which means I don't like most romance shows.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because that's the thing is it's fucking hard to write one
Yeah.
that feels human and well paced and like convincing. Like and they've been doing this, man.
Genshiken did not feel like a romance to me, though. I just feel like it had
Oh,
a
no.
romance element that...
Yeah, its romance story was very good, but that was not the central thrust of
Yeah.
the story. Like, his love interest doesn't even get introduced until the second season.
Would you...
Oh.
Have you seen Ouran?
Only parts of it, not the whole thing.
Have you seen Ouran? Yeah, that's kind of the same way. I mean, the romance is a big part of that, but I don't feel like it's the driving thing. But yeah, no, like... MMO Junkie is a romance, like, that is a romance show. Like,
Yeah.
flat out, this entire thing was about the romance between the two of them. Everything else wasn't window dressing by any means, but it was the world surrounding it, and that
Yeah.
worked heavily to its
Lovingly
benefit.
crafted, clearly with someone
Oh,
that
yeah.
knows what this shit is. And again, that feels like it's really just the romance for MMO Junkie is only like supplemented by how well the author knows about this culture and how this online dynamic is so fucking weird and how it works. And in Magus Bride, this fucking fantastical setting that is so alien from her terrible human life she had. It's so cool to me.
But here with Magus, I wouldn't necessarily call this a romance manga or show. It's fantasy first, the romance second.
Really?
Oh, I disagree.
I think it's a romance first.
I can see that, but this, I don't know. It's hard for me. I think it strikes a good balance between the two of them, but whereas it's a lot of self-discovery, I don't know. I can definitely see seeing it as a romance first, but for me, it's more been about self-discovery through these things and less about like two people falling in love. Although that's definitely
I don't think you can have a good romance story without a strong element of self-discovery.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the big theme of this relationship, which is ultimately like what every good romance should fucking have.
I mean, there are definitely good romance stories about two people who damn well know themselves, but
yeah, certainly. But I think
can't
this one's
think
a
of
lot more.
one.
yeah, I probably have to dig around myself. But I don't know.
I can see how that would happen. I love seeing both of these characters come into their own, not only in themselves, but also together, and how this becomes this symbiotic relationship in a good way.
Yeah.
Because I was fucking worried. I think all of us were. We talked for like half an
yeah.
hour about,
Yeah.
I hope this doesn't get real bad.
Yeah, and some people were. I think some people were weirded out by the fact that we were so emphasized on that. Some people even said that that they think that I'm uncomfortable with sexuality.
What?
Yeah. I like to put it out there. I am not anywhere close to uncomfortable with sexuality in my media.
No.
I'm more uncomfortable with the fact that it's so often poorly implemented.
Yes.
I get worried when I see sexuality in my media, not because I don't like sexy things. Trust me, I was all about Sword in his underwear. I wasn't kidding. My problem is that sometimes sexuality is poorly handled since a wrong message gets
And that can be
muddied up.
damaging for people that watch it.
Yeah,
Like, that was, I think, our biggest concern.
Yeah, no, I am all like again.
Yeah, I mean, I was the guy in the Your Name review, a movie which I otherwise loved, that had to
Yeah.
take a big aside to say, hey, by the way, though, this is just a fantasy, and if you try to treat this as if you try to model your life after this, you're gonna fuck up.
Yeah,
and
yes.
I'm sitting here telling you that as somebody who's fucked up. Shit.
I've spent years of my life chasing the idea that I had one chance in high school because that's what fiction told me, and I
Yep.
fucked it up, and now I'm alone and miserable forever, and that's just not true. Love is great, but hey, it also doesn't solve all your problems. You got to figure this shit out together.
And sexuality can be one of those hard things to handle because what is exploitative and what is legitimately core to these characters' dynamic, and moreover, objectification is not a bad thing as long as it's done openly, honestly, and fairly. Like, because, having a sexy character on screen is cool as long as it does not rob them of their agency and is not does not rob them of what that character is. Gina, that is a hot character, but much like Fujiko, she's also competent. She handles herself, and it's okay that she's sexual. That's fine. With the sexuality in Magus, like, that is more, again, subtext than full on, of overt sexuality. That can be worse. That can be
Because that can be really malicious. Like,
Yeah.
that can just be something at the back of your head going, oh, like, yeah, it kind of worked out for them. I can get someone with treats me like garbage. And,
Yes.
like, that was what I was worried about.
Yeah, that's the thing that
that's the Beauty and the Beast problem.
Exactly. Just oh no, he's still good, even though he still beats me. Like, it's that kind of shit.
He can change.
Yes, the idea that you can change this monster, you have to. That's not how it works.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is not what this show is.
Yes, and I'm on board with the Magus Bride train. Like, it is. I'm really happy to see here. What, episode 9?
Yeah,
right?
this was 9. Yeah.
That
Oh,
it
man,
really fucking pulled my heart around with this. I was not looking forward to it, but if you guys haven't watched it yet, do yourselves a fucking favor. It's a really good ride so far.
Yeah. Also, Ruth, I have a thing for dogs. They're like. In that scene where he's at the grave, I cried because that was like, no, you poor little dog.
Yeah.
Somebody help this poor creature. And the fact that he is like more dog than man at times is adorable. And I love that relationship he's got with Jisei. And I'm such a furry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. It's as a furry enabler, I agree. He is really endearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like we've beat Chisei half to death here. So
Oh, good. Maybe now she'll love us.
Aw, no.
this is why I pass it to you, Ben. You can pick it up.
You're the
Guys,
pitcher, he's the catcher.
Yes.
thanks so much for joining us. Join us again next week and every week until we die.
Much.
Except for Christmas week, because then we're going on vacation. But we will be back next week with more Magus, more MMO, the last MMO Junkie.
I know. Yeah, it's the finale.
Ooh,
I'm
the
excited.
last MMO sounds like a great. It sounds like a great Sword Art Online ripoff.
Yeah. We can get some Snow Crash shit going on there.
We'll see you guys next week.
See y'all.